we've urged a swift, a thorough, and impartial investigation to understand exactly what happened.
We're going to have a big victory. The polls are looking tremendous in Michigan and Wisconsin.
Whatever became of January 6, 2021, whatever dynamics were at play before it happened, there's fear the same dynamics are lining up.
Hello, everyone. I'm Weijia Jiang in Washington. Welcome to America Decides. The White House says it is outraged by an Israeli airstrike that killed 7 aid workers in Gaza, including 1 American. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said his country's armed forces had, quote, unintentionally struck a convoy from the humanitarian group World Central Kitchen yesterday. President Biden called the organization's founder, Chef Jose Andres, to express condolences for those who died in the strike. The U.S. is also pushing for alternatives to a planned invasion of the southern Gazan city of Rafah. American and Israeli officials discussed this during a virtual meeting yesterday. Nancy Cordes joins us now from the White House. Nancy, it's great to see you. President Biden has not spoken about this strike yet, but earlier today, Secretary of State Antony Blinken talked about the World Central Kitchen aid workers who died. I want to play that and then chat with you on the other side.
We've spoken directly to the Israeli government about this particular incident. We've urged a swift, a thorough, and impartial investigation to understand exactly what happened. And as we have throughout this conflict, we've impressed upon the Israelis the absolute imperative of doing more to protect innocent civilian lives, be they Palestinian children, women, and men, or be they aid workers.
Nancy, we have seen a change in tone and posture from the White House, but no change in policy with regard to providing military aid. Does this strike change that?
It doesn't, at least not yet, Weijia, based on the information that we have so far. First of all, White House officials were urging caution today. They said they want to wait for all the information to come out, and they said that they're urging the Israelis to make that information public when they have it before the U.S. makes any decisions. But even beyond that, the NSC spokesman, John Kirby, was pressed by reporters repeatedly today, and he insisted that U.S. military aid to Israel is not in jeopardy, is not going to be conditioned on any particular Israeli behavior. He says that Israel has the right to defend itself and that the U.S. is an ally of Israel, and so it is not going to create any new conditions for military aid at this time, despite the fact that that White House officials were horrified by this incident. I mean, in this case, you had a group of aid workers working for World Central Kitchen, run by the renowned chef Jose Andres, who received a phone call from the president today to express his condolences. And it appears they were doing everything right. They were in a marked vehicle that clearly showed that they were humanitarian workers. They had told the IDF about their movements, and they were moving in a safe zone. So how they ended up being struck by the IDF is really mystifying at this point.
And even though John Kirby, that spokesman, says it is too soon to determine exactly what happened, he also said that the U.S. is outraged over the strike. Tell us more about that piece.
Right. I asked him if the U.S. is outraged, what that really means, how that is going to translate into U.S. policy, and what kinds of answers the U.S. is pushing for right now when it comes to this incident. Take a listen to that exchange.
You said that the White House is outraged by the strike that killed these World Central Kitchen workers. Has the White House already conveyed that outrage to anyone in the Israeli government, and what was their response?
Well, I won't speak for the Israelis. We've been very clear about our feelings over this particular strike and our expectations of the Israelis.
So notable that he came out and said that there is outrage on the part of the U.S. government. We know now that at least one of the victims was a dual U.S. citizen, although the White House said its heart goes out to all of the citizens who were killed. These were people who were simply trying to make a difference and provide food in an unbelievably difficult environment where you have hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who are lacking the food they need right now.
And Nancy, I want to talk to you, too, about the conversation that President Biden had this morning with Chinese President Xi Jinping. It was their first call since they had a summit in November in California. The administration set low expectations, saying this was simply a check-in, but they actually talked about a lot. What can you tell us?
Sure. They talked about everything from the Taiwan Strait and needing to provide security there to U.S. concerns about Chinese support for Russia's military-industrial complex. They talked about what the White House described as China's unfair trade practices. So they did cover a lot of ground, and these phone calls are notable because they happen so infrequently. But interestingly, Weijia, White House officials told us today that the president did not deliver any new type of warning when it comes to misinformation or disinformation or any Chinese attempt to try to influence the 2024 election, despite mounting evidence that that's exactly what's happening.
Well, I'm sure we will be following that closely, especially as we get closer to November. Nancy, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Former President Trump is campaigning in two key battleground states today, Michigan and Wisconsin. He lost both states to President Biden in 2020 after winning both of them in 2016. Torian Small joins us now from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Torian, it is great to see you there at a rally that I know well. I've covered many of those. Tell me, what is Trump's strategy for winning back these Midwestern states this time around? Because really, you know, he didn't lose by all that much.
Yeah, and Weijia, these Midwest states have become critical to folks' race to the White House. And what we're seeing, what's interesting about states like Michigan and Wisconsin, we're seeing Trump shift his strategy to making the case that these states, despite being far away from the southern border, have essentially become border states. Trump has been doing the rounds of local radio ahead of his dueling rallies today. And he told the radio host in Michigan that he was hoping to speak with and meet with the family of Ruby Garcia. According to police, Ruby Garcia was a 25-year-old woman from Michigan who was allegedly murdered by her significant partner, who happened to be a migrant. Trump is making the case that this is the consequence of Trump's of current President Joe Biden's open borders, in his words, and that's a message that's starting to resonate with voters here in states like Wisconsin.
Well, Trump himself seemed pretty confident in Michigan today when he spoke at a rally. Let's take a listen to what he had to say about his chances moving ahead.
We're going to have a big victory. The polls are looking tremendous in Michigan and Wisconsin, and we're going to do something I think that's very, very special. I think it's going to be a very special election. I've been saying November 5th of this year is going to be the most important day in the history of our country.
Of course, it all depends on what voters have to say about that. So tell us what the people you're talking to on the ground, where they're leaning right now, whether it's Biden or Trump.
Yeah, Weijia, this is a state that is completely dug in when it comes to political polarization. Republican voters I talked to have no wiggle room in decidedly who they're going to vote for in November. They are firmly behind Donald Trump and often parrot some of the same rhetoric that we've heard him say on the campaign trail. As it relates to Democrats, we've seen something a bit more nuanced. There's a building movement, an uncommitted vote movement that really started in Michigan. There are folks here in Wisconsin looking to mimic the success of this non-committal or uninstructed, as they're calling, anti-Biden ballot vote. And this is in protest of his handling of the Israel-Hamas war. They're calling for a permanent ceasefire, and they're hoping that, by essentially getting Democrats to vote against Biden, at least just in the primary, would be the wake-up call to get him to move on this issue.
Yeah, policy is certainly one thing, but the operation is also quite important. So tell us about the difference you're seeing between the Biden team and the Trump team when it comes to logistics, staffing, the ground game there.
Well, the Biden campaign has boasted the fact that be it through the president himself, through Vice President Harris, or through First Lady Dr. Jill Biden. They've been pretty comprehensively ingrained in this state. Several visits to the state from one of those three principals, but also we know that Biden will be returning to the state next week. The Biden campaign took a shot at Donald Trump for making this visit to the state, saying that this is his first time since 2022. He's been here and he's been more involved in court cases, those legal entanglements, than focusing on crucial battleground states like Michigan, like Wisconsin. So yeah, that's essentially what we've seen from both sides. The Trump campaign, though, is saying they have enough surrogates out here to do enough campaigning for the president while he is involved in those legal matters.
Yes, I think we'll be seeing both candidates there a lot in the next few months, and we're so happy that you are there covering it all. Thanks, Torian. Even while sentences are still being handed out to January 6th defendants, some judges, witnesses, and prosecutors involved in those cases are warning of future threats to democracy ahead of November's presidential election. That new CBS News reporting is straight ahead. You're streaming America Decides.
At a time when we need leaders who will bring our country together, Donald Trump is engaging in extreme rhetoric that promotes division, hate, and violence in our country. Donald Trump is perfectly comfortable with violence when he thinks it benefits him. In fact, he encourages it.
President Biden's re-election campaign is accusing former President Trump of embracing violent political rhetoric. Just days ago, Trump shared an image on social media depicting Biden tied up in the back of a pickup truck. Our Scott McFarland joins us now and has a new piece titled "Judges, Witnesses, Prosecutors Increasingly Warn of Threats to Democracy in 2024 Elections as January 6th's Prosecutions Continue." Scott, it's great to see you. You have extensively covered cases and prosecutions linked to January 6th, and here we are on the brink of another presidential election. So tell me what concerns these judges and prosecutors have.
It's been unmistakable watching the court proceedings play out over the past few weeks, how the warnings have increased from what they were this time last year or 2 years ago. It's the judges, it's the U.S. attorneys, the prosecutors, and it's some of the witnesses, which includes former Capitol and D.C. police officers, all saying emphatically that we're on the precipice of another election where there's a potential for a violent reaction from whatever became of January 6, 2021, whatever dynamics were at play before it happened. There's fear the same dynamics are lining up. You've heard judges say in so many words that with an election coming, there's an increased need for deterrence to send a message through the cases, through the sentencings, that political violence is clearly criminal and unacceptable, but needs to be dissuaded, that there's this toxicity in the politics that's increasing by the day. And these are not political actors. These are judges and these are police officers saying as much.
I want to ask you about the presumptive Republican nominee, of course, who faces his own accusations about playing a role in January 6th, Donald Trump, who recently posted a picture of President Joe Biden tied up in the back of a truck. Now, some would say this is just Trump being Trump, but others have real concerns about what this sort of rhetoric does to contribute to what you just talked about. Can you talk to me about what those concerns are?
Those who've argued that Trump should undergo gag orders in the D.C. criminal case for election conspiracy and now this New York case in Manhattan for filing false business records have said that his speech can be insightful. His critics will say it's an intentional or a staccatic type of language that may be trying to induce arguments against or the targeting of public officials. I think those who may be not critics of him, but those who are following the judicial system say there may just be people who follow whatever he says and take action on their own. We've seen that here in Washington. We've seen that with a case of a man named Taylor Toronto, who's pleaded not guilty to federal charges, who was accused of menacing outside the Washington, D.C. home of former President Obama. Shortly after, hours after, former President Trump pushed through social media a message that indicated former President Obama's home address, that there's this inducement to action by his supporters, even if not intentional. intentional or otherwise, there's concern what he says, what he supports, what he transmits, be it a photo, be it a Photoshop, be it an AI image, be it some preposterous image of President Biden tied up in the back of a pickup truck, photographically, is problematic and dangerous.
And I wonder if this is bleeding into Congress in the sense that, you know, does it give members a pass to use the same sort of inflammatory language and rhetoric?
Well, we've seen that too. We've seen the argument that when Donald Trump calls January 6 criminal defendants convicted and imprisoned hostages, we've seen members of Congress pick up that mantle and run with it. The head of the House Republican Conference, who's in charge of messaging for House Republicans, Elise Stefanik of New York, has echoed the term hostages. Others in the Republican Party have echoed the term hostages, or the argument January 6 defendants are political prisoners. Over the past few weeks, as we watch the court proceedings play out, CBS News has noticed police officers speaking in hearings saying this is unacceptable, this is objectionable. If he's calling them hostages, who are we? The hostage takers as police officers who responded January 6th? What there is a series of warnings that this type of rhetoric, this type of dialogue, is on a bad trajectory for all of us the closer we get to November.
And we will all be watching very closely. Thank you so much, Scott MacFarlane. The Biden campaign believes Florida is up for grabs this November. We dig into that possibility with our panel next. You're streaming America Decides. President Biden's campaign says Florida, which went for Donald Trump twice, is winnable in November. The campaign claims abortion rights are a main reason why the state will be competitive.
Florida is not an easy state to win, but it is definitely winnable, a winnable one for the president. The majority of people in the state of Florida, they desire to go in a direction that's in a different direction than the Republicans have taken us over the last few years.
And our panel joins us now. That's Tom Lobianco and Kadia Goba. Tom is a national politics reporter at 24 Sight and also wrote a biography on former Vice President Mike Pence. Kadia is a politics reporter for Semaphore. It's great to see you both. Hey. So the campaign is very excited. They think that Florida is going to be swinging again, all because of abortion rights, which, to be fair, has been successful for Democrats in the past couple years. But is it enough to turn it blue again?
Highly unlikely for Florida. I mean, the margins that we've seen, especially in the national contest in Florida, just don't give that indication. More than likely, what it does is it increases turnout among women voters. Now, whether or not that becomes a dedicated, a straight ticket Democrat is another question right now. And it seems pretty unlikely. But hey, you know, if they want to put another state in play, I'm sure they love to do that.
And Kadia, what do you think? I mean, obviously, money is a factor. They're already pouring money into this state, and now Trump might have to respond. But is there some wiggle room to win?
Yeah, I think there's several issues that the campaign or the Biden campaign is looking at. One, there was a slight dip in 2020 or from 2020 when, you know, there were other candidates on the ballot. Trump took a little bit of a dip when given the chance to vote for DeSantis and other people. There's also this abortion measure you're talking about. Mm-hmm. This has been a national campaign for Democrats for 2 years now, ever since Roe v. Wade was overturned. So, yeah, it would be a safe bet to say that if there's a measure, if there's a abortion measure on the ballot, that this will have some voter turnout. But with that said, there are still 850,000 more Republican voters than Democrats in Florida. So swinging, I'm not sure that's the what's going to happen here. But what they are going to do is probably force them to push a lot of money out in a state that that Republicans should win outright. That'll probably deplete some other states where they should be focusing their time and money.
They just spent $1 million on this new abortion ad that I want to show you guys. It just launched today on the heels of that ruling in Florida that will allow the 6-week ban to move ahead. So this is what Biden put out today.
Because for 54 years, they were trying to get Roe v. Wade terminated, and I did it. And I'm proud to have done it.
In 2016, Donald Trump ran to overturn Roe v. Wade. Now, in 2024, he's running to pass a national ban on a woman's right to choose. I'm running to make Roe v. Wade the law of the land again, so women have a federal guarantee to the right to choose. Donald Trump doesn't trust women. I do.
And this isn't just running in Florida, it's all the battleground states and North Carolina. Do you think that this sort of contrast, what we've been seeing from Biden, is going to make an impact in those states?
I think so. I think it's safe to say that the campaign is ramping up at this point. They're going to go very aggressive on abortion, and they're going to tie Republicans associated with Trump to abortion. They're going to look at his Supreme Court justice picks. They're going to really, really focus on this abortion thing and reproductive rights and how women are being, you heard him say it, they don't trust, Donald Trump doesn't trust women. So I think this is going to be an ongoing thing for them up until November.
It's ironic in a sense that you have the Biden campaign imposing, oppositionally, obviously here, but imposing the message discipline on Trump that he could never have. I mean, and they've been talking about this for months, and certainly after we saw the midterm results or the off-year results in 2023, where abortion continued to be a major driver of voter turnout. The Biden campaign, Democrats, top operatives have been saying for months now that they're going to hang abortion around Trump's neck. And you saw that in that advertisement right there. And what's interesting about this, and I think this is where it's a vulnerability for Trump in particular, as much as we're going to see this with a pair of rallies this week, Wisconsin, Michigan, if his rallies don't draw attention the way that they used to. So the rambling, the kind of the off-script rants that he doesn't draw nearly as much attention as it used to, which creates an opening for Democrats, in this case, Biden, to impose that message there. And so we're going to see if that works or not. Single issue, driving that home, seems like a very good strategy right now, certainly for the Democrats.
So he is on the offensive. He's also on the defensive. We just saw yesterday about his age. So I want to play sort of this very apparent strategy that he is using to defend himself.
1878, this started with Rutherford B. Hayes. I think I met him, but, what is it?
A classmate of mine. I know it may not look like it, but I've been around a while. When you get to be my age, certain things become clearer than ever.
You are currently 81 years old.
Who the hell told you that?
Yeah.
That's classified.
That's classified.
So yesterday he said he was a classmate of President Rutherford B. Hayes. Is this working, do you think?
Yeah, I think a little political jujitsu certainly helps here. You saw a turn. I've seen a turn from Biden and the campaign tacking, certainly since the State of the Union. And kind of owning these things a little bit better than they were doing before. And it does seem to have quieted a lot of that Democratic discontent they used to have around the age question. Now, does he stumble? Does he have falls again? That could hurt that.
I think someone in the campaign decidedly thought, you know what, we might as well meet people where they are, address the issue. Let's not hide from it. This is a charismatic president. Let's use that to our advantage, and let's just put it on the table. And I think it probably is working. We'll see what that means in November. But I think people think you saw Lindsey Graham laughing there, right?
Yes, one of my favorite cutaways from the State of the Union. Guys, I wish I could talk to you all evening, but that's all the time we have. Thank you so much, Tom LaBianco and Kadia Yes. That does it for us today. We'll be back with another edition of America Decides tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. You're streaming CBS News.